Hey Guitar Champion, what's going on? I'm 𝗎𝙗𝙦𝗦𝗧𝗏 back from my practice dojo and welcome to today's video. Today I have for you a really good friend of mine as a guest on my YouTube channel, Fabian Radzak, who is the co-host of my German podcast, Let's Talk Guitar, and he is capturing amps for a living. So I wanted to bring him over to my channel to talk about how to capture an amp, what are the difficulties, why neural DSP is better than ToneX, is better than Kemper, and what kind of different devices we have in the realm of capturing and snapshotting an amp, and also how you can do it today at home super easy. So let's dive in today's talk with my good friend Fabian Radzak. I wish you a lot of fun. Check out his captures and check out his YouTube channel. You can find the link right in the description box. Cheers, and here we go. Hello Fabian, welcome to my YouTube channel. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing great, and it's such a great honor to be here, and it's really surprising me to talk to you in English.
It is a weird situation in two kind of ways, because one of all, I'm interviewing you. Usually we two are interviewing other people together in our podcast, Let's Talk Guitar, and usually we speak German together. So it's really weird with you speaking English now.
It's weird, but I think it works.
Ja, nice. Du komische englische Sprache halt, ne? Komisch, yeah. No, we are talking about today about capturing an amp, which is, I think, quite an interesting process and interesting development in the amp culture itself. I mean, we are talking a lot about this on our podcast, and I know your opinions on certain things and all these kind of things, but today we want to take a closer look into the whole process of capturing the sound, and also speaking about some of your newest sounds and all this kind of stuff. So my first question that I have for you is, when did all of this start to you? When did this whole journey of capturing amps start you? Because you're an analog guy. That's kind of the interesting thing between both of us. I'm a digital, you're an analog kind of guy. But when did this journey started to you?
Man, I would say it was, you're right, I'm totally analog and like to play tube amps. But there was a time when I first discovered the, I don't know if you remember it, it was the Line 6 XA2, I don't know, such a small combo. It was the first digital unit, I had it, and I thought, man, I really like the idea because you have your presets, you have your knobs, you can save everything, and that was nice. And we had a lot of rehearsals with it, and I enjoyed it very much. Was a big fan already, but my drummer always said, the pressure is missing. There is no thump on stage. It's not as good as your regular tube amp.
The punch was missing.
Yeah. And I kind of agreed because it was an old technology. And then I got back. Then I think I bought a Mesa Boogie Nomad. Not too good known amp, but it's a really killer sounding amp, and I was feeling the thump again, and it was really nice. But then a few years later, the whole ecosystem of Quad Cortex and ToneX started, and I was curious about it, and I'm always curious about new technology and new tones and sounds, and I checked it out, and I was really impressed when I first tried it, and then I was in kind of a jungle, because I needed to find out how does it feel, how does it sound, and yeah, that was.
What was the first device where you started capturing amps with?
That was definitely ToneX. ToneX was the first one, yes. And it started with me, I was testing so many amps and captures. There were some good stuff, free available, and some very bad stuff. And then I got in contact by a company called Amalgam Audio, where I'm doing demos regularly, and he became a good friend of mine, still is, and we are nerding around about amps and stuff, and that kind of got me in the right direction. And then I was curious and thought, man, I need to try it myself. I have some great amps, and I have friends who have even nicer amps, and it would be a great idea to have them just in case you need it for recording and some stuff like this.
Can you remember which was the first amp that you captured?
I think that was one of my GG amps that I was once endorsed by a Romanian guy who builds really killer amps. You remember this at the Messe? And that was my first try, but I didn't have the right tools at this time. It was okay, and they felt good and sound okay, but it wasn't quite there. It was the beginning. Like, we all have to learn. I knew how to set it up, the amp, that it sounds good, but it still wasn't. I wasn't too good with the capturing technology then.
Mm-hmm. And what was the skills that you have to achieve to become better with the capturing process? Was it more finding out, okay, how the unit of the ToneX works, or was it even something where you'd say, okay, I had to retrain my ears to get to know when to go into the right directions and all this kind of thing?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of everything. At first, you definitely need some good stuff. You need good hardware, like because I'm not miking up an amp, like a full capture with the full signal chain. I'm doing the eye captures, and for this you need some good stuff like the Sulfur reactive load, and that also costs money, and then you have invest. So it's a hard learning process. But since I moved to the Sulfur reactive load and got used to it, how to set up the levels properly and do a lot of testing and shoot some IRs, I was really in the right direction. And then it's all about, you have to train your ear. You have to know what you like, what you don't like, and you have to know what works for some people and what doesn't work. You have to know the volume, because when you're playing very quiet, you hear totally different than when playing very loud. So that was really a pain in the ass, and it was a lot of practice, actually. Yes.
Let's go one step behind. And for everybody watching right now who does not really know what capturing is, can you explain in your words what capturing actually is and where the difference between capturing and modeling is?
For sure. In my own words, I can describe it kind of like it. Basically, it's if you imagine, if you're watching a movie where the pictures are moving, actually, and if you look at a photograph. For me, it's something like this. It's like a still frame of a great scene in the movie. And this is, for me, it's like a capture, because that is the right interpretation of the tone that you have. And modeling is more like basically emulating all this. And it might be easier if you want to maybe use an equalizer like the amp. It's a lot better with the modeling stuff. But if you want, at least for me, if you want a really authentic tone, then I think the capturing technology is better. But you need to have the right settings. And that's really difficult. Sometimes it's, or not sometimes, I think for most people, it's a lot easier to go with modeling, because you have all your settings, you can change them a lot. And with capturing, it's like hit or miss. Except, and that's why I was doing it, because I have these amps and I dial them in the settings that I like, that I think are good. And so I just need maybe 2 or 3 settings of an amp. I don't need 25.
Exactly. So when, guide us through that process. When you get like a new amp, or like, let's imagine you will get a new amp, like a really cool classic old school amp, like for example, a Mesa Boogie Mark III. And let's just guide us through the day or through your whole work process. How do you start capturing? What are the first things that you do when you get an amp? And where does it lead to in the whole kind of process of capturing an amp? Yeah.
So the first thing I do, it's a great example because I just captured a Mesa Boogie Mark III.
A wonder! Wow.
Yeah, what a wonder! So a friend was offering it for me to capture it, and before that, already a few weeks before, I did some research about the amp, about guys using it, watched some clips to get my ears in the right direction. And of course, I know a little bit what to expect when hearing the word boogie, because like you, I'm not the biggest Dream Theater fan, but I'm a big fan and I love Bertucci's tone and sound and playing, and I kind of have a frame in my head how it might sound. So that was the first idea. And when receiving the amp, I was just trying out a little bit and did some test captures and learned a little bit about the amp, because some amps are really hard to dial in. Because you have to know, sometimes it's way too much bass and the control works totally opposite like you think. But the good thing is we all live in a great time now where ChatGPT and Google is there, and of course you know some friends and ask them. I talked to Miko from ML Sound Lab, because a week before he was posting a video about Mesa Boogie amps and how to dial them in. And I asked him about the settings and he helped me, and I was dialing that, and that was really the first right direction. And from there it was just tweaking and finding out what works.
Mm-hmm. And how does the whole capturing process then in the end is, are you taking your ToneX and you put it in front of the amp, or are you just connecting it and then you play some? How does the capturing work?
Actually, it's not that complicated, because when you have for example, the software ToneX, you have your interface. There is a description how to do. So you put, the cable 1 to the amp input, and the output from the amp or from the sewer reactive load goes back to the interface, and then you have to level correctly. Actually, it's not that complicated. The complicated part is, I think, in my opinion, is to dial in the tone correctly, because the rest is AI is doing it. ToneX is doing it. I'm not doing the tone. I'm just dial it in, and so the rest is by the, for example, the quad Cortex. It's like the same. You have to wait, and you have to, of course, test, because there might be, sometimes it doesn't work, but actually it works all the time if there isn't a glitch in the software. And ToneX, recently it's a nightmare, because there are some errors, like there is a sign 1970, it was captured 1970. Of course it wasn't captured there, but then the capture is lost, so the information. And if you're doing 10 in a row, all the info metadata is missing, and you don't know what it is. So you can start again. So that can be a nightmare.
That sounds crazy. So it is much, much easier than compared to back in the day, because I remember around 8, 9, 10 years ago when I got my Kemper. Of course, Kemper was kind of the first big thing where capturing got popular. And I remember when I got a Kemper, I was interested in how does this capturing kind of thing work. And I put it up in my rehearsal room.
Nice.
And I mic'd like an amp that a friend brought over, and I think it was a Fender amp. And then these weird alien sounds are happening and all this kind of, and it sounded like shit in the end. It sounded like shit, because the people were often saying, okay, if you want to capturing something in a good way, you need like a studio situation with good miking, so with good mics and a good room and all this kind of thing. So you don't need all of that anymore today with the ToneX and all the other devices.
It depends. If you're doing this kind of situation, we're doing the full lineup for speaker and room, and you do the whole setup, you definitely need some very, very good stuff and good ears. The thing is, with the DI captures, it's a lot easier if you have, for example, if you have your favorite IRs that you're using, and then from the sewer reactive load, you get an DI signal, so like the amp would sound before it goes to the speaker. But this has to be a good one. For example, you can use, of course, there are other brands out there, I won't mention them, but they are kind of more flat response, and they didn't sound and feel too great, in my opinion. The thing is, with the amps, you need the impedance curve. I think it's impedance curve, yes. And this is how an amp reacts and works if you put it with speakers. And this signal, then, when you're testing it with your IR, your favorite one, it will sound like you might think this has to sound. Otherwise, if you're just doing it for guessing, it wouldn't work.
Mm. So from my experience, you're using not only the ToneX, but you're also using the NAMM capturing system, and nowadays as well the quad Cortex device.
Yes.
Why as well like the quad Cortex now? Because I remember you had the quad Cortex in the past, and you didn't really, and I did not like it. But you hated it even.
Yes,
I hated it.
Because of several reasons. Because at first the footsteps are so, I don't know what's going on there. But now I really love it because everything is there. There is the IOs, the input and outputs are perfectly. The capturing is way better now than it was before. It's now basically on par with NAMM. If we have to choose which is the best, I mean, they all sound fantastic. It's really like listening so close. I would say, if I have to rate them, I would say NAMM number 1, Quad Cortex number 2, but very close, and ToneX number 3, but also very close. And you have to have very, very good ears, because in the end you wouldn't hear it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't hear it, so yeah.
Me neither. I did several tests, and me and Amalgam Audio, and Amalgam Audio has so great ears. I mean, you can go to the doctor and how much you can hear. Basically, he has fantastic results. And we were doing these blind tests, and I was thinking, I don't hear a fucking change here. So it's really hard, and I didn't feel it either. So of course, there's something when you. I mean, we have to be honest. The best thing is the real thing, like in life, of course. But it's more like a feel thing, because if you see something that you really like and you see a big stack, a big boogie stack on stage, you think, of course, this will beat the shit out of it, out of a small Quad Cortex, if you compare it. But I guess in a mix, you wouldn't hear too much difference. It's more, the thing is, when you're on stage and you're using cabinets, that's a different story. But just for recording, I wouldn't need analog. It's just more fun because you can dial in a little bit different, and it's, yeah.
The dialing in part is kind of an interesting aspect of the whole capturing thing, because I think one also like layer, like element that is added to the capturing is the personal taste of the person who's capturing it. So when you get like a Fabian Ratzer capture, you get his kind of tone, his kind of sound as well.
Of course.
And I think that is kind of quite really interesting, because some people, they might say, I like this capture from that guy, or I more like prefer these captures from this guy. And how much do you sometimes go out of your comfort zone while capturing? Because we had this kind of discussion a couple of days ago where you were sending me kind of captures, and I was like, they're all cool, but could be more gain, and you were like, what? It's totally. So much gain.
I think in the end it's really interesting, and it's great to have these kind of challenges to get out of the comfort zone, like when practicing. It's good to have a basis where you can really rely on. If you say, I think I have a bad day, but you can trust your ears. I know when something's off, and if I compare it to my once you have your main tones and you know they work, you always compare them to this, and you have this in your mind and in your ear. And if they even didn't work on this day, you have to make something different. It's just the ears are full. And like you said, it was a great challenge, and I don't know if I nailed it, but try to get more gain, more in that kind of direction you wanted it. And but in the end, it's I will come to, and I have to come to an end, and I have to learn, and maybe it's a hit or miss. And that's a good thing also about the capturing, because there are so many guys doing it, and it's cool if someone says, I like the other one better. Go for it. It's like taste. We all taste things differently and hear differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you perfectly nailed with the Mesa Boogie Mark III sound, this typical 90s Petrucci Images
That was my goal.
From the ones that I've played, I haven't played the new ones that you've sent to me with the more distortion. I want to try it out in the next couple of days. But the ones that you've sent me with for my personal taste, less distortion, but it was already like perfect for this images and words kind of sound. Nice. So definitely recommend to the people out there, if you want to have this images and words kind of sound, definitely go check out these captures. And and that you nailed that there perfectly. You
Thanks.
made them all. When you do the capturing, you're also doing it as well for all the 3 devices, right? So everybody who gets a neural DSP or who has a neural DSP can, or like a quad Cortex, I think that's the important thing, who can use this, but everybody who have the ToneX can use it as well, the NAMs as well, right?
NAM, not
Okay.
not all of them, because you have to imagine I have to do it all again. I'm not the guy, because I don't have the time to do everything ToneX, then in the same day everything quad Cortex, and then NAM. Sometimes it's with the Boogie, it was kind of, oh, okay, I'm doing ToneX, and then when ToneX was ready, then I was getting the cables back in for quad Cortex, and I was doing it with like 15 or 20 tones. After that, it's more write down the settings and do it again. So that it could be that on one day it was better, maybe with the ToneX or with the quad Cortex. It's hard to tell, but these are all nuances for all these nerds who really like to hear these differences.
And I think the people who really can hear this are the people who probably own the amp.
Sure.
So for
So they
somebody
don't
who
need it anyway.
yeah, so they don't need it anyways.
But it also saves some money if there's something wrong with the amp. Like I had the fuse blowed out, and I was kind of like, oh my god, this amp costs so much money. A friend borrowed it to me. Now I have to pay for it. But then I put the right thing in, and it works again perfectly. And then everything was ready. So everything's good.
What was again that blew out? Like a tube or like?
Yeah, it's like 𝙎𝙤𝙢𝙢𝙚. How is it called in English?
I will look that up.
Yeah,
and I will put it in right in
yeah,
here.
okay, nice. Yeah. Fuse?
Fuse, yeah, I think fuse could be. Yeah.
The main fuse.
Oh wow, okay. But I mean, that's the reason why fuses are there, to get replaced when something is wrong.
And one thing also, I really dimed the shit out of it from the volume, because that's a great thing when you have a load box, like a pseudo-reactive load. You can really, if you would do this in a room, I would already get fired here from this building, because it's so loud. Can't do this.
Absolutely. How old is that amp?
Oh, that amp must be from 88, something like
Wow,
this.
wow,
It's
so
old.
really amp. So besides that amp, what was, an amp where you would say like, okay, wow, this is a really special amp to capture, that made maybe a lot of fun to capture for you, because the...
Yeah, for me, all the Marshall stuff, because I'm a big Marshall fan. I really enjoyed the 87X. Yeah, the German and the English numbers, difficult sometimes. I really like the JCM 2000, which I think is a killer amp. The JVM, so many stuff. I had a really nice Vox AC15 here, a JTM. Man, so much amps, so much fun.
Any amps in the future where you think like, okay, I can wait to capture them, or are there any like wishes where you would say, I would love to capture one of those amps one day?
Yeah, I would love to. Actually, although I was kind of in the ballpark with the Mesa Mark III, I would love to capture the real John Petrucci signature amp. The JP2C Plus would be a dream, and the Mark IV, which actually can happen through some connections of a buddy of our friend Robin, and and some more amps. I'm always open, because I like different kind of amps, because they inspire me differently. If I would go to Desert Island, definitely would be some kind of Plexi Marshall. But in the end, I think I'm really open, and I like to have different tones.
I heard a lot about, the input levels, that they are quite important, especially with the ToneX. Now, in our discussion, I often heard like, okay, you have to check the input level with the ToneX. What is the deal about all of this?
Yeah, it's basically interesting, because we all have different audio interfaces. And as you might know, we all have different guitars, and if you put it in, it's mostly clipping, because we have humbuckers, and they're very near the bridge or to the string, and they were clipping, and that's actually a bad thing. So I would suggest to dial in the interface. There are different opinions about it, but for me it works best. If you want my captures, it works best when you dial the interface in, that when you strum very hard on your hottest pickup, it barely gets red. You have to really hard, and then it gets red. And the rest is, look for a clean capture, for a edgy capture, and for a crunch capture, and then try to find the balance. Clean is not your 80s clean where you can really crank the shit out of it and it still is clean, so it breaks a little bit up. Because that's, for me, the best clean tone, because it really sits better in the mix. If you want to have that 80s kind of stuff, go direct into the interface, use some compression, some chorus, whatever. That works better.
And finding out what your taste actually is, what you actually like. And for that, I mean, again, the times nowadays, it's so easy because, you know, you don't have to choose anymore. Am I buying an amp for $2,000 or $3,000? You can go to the Fabian Radzak page and get a capture for what, like a couple of euros, right?
But that's true. But one thing I would suggest, and it got me also in that direction, when you're testing some captures and you think, man, that sounds so good, I want this amp. And that's one thing I really love, because then the industry is rolling. Still, the analog guys can pay their dues to make more amps, because one doesn't exist without the other. And I think that's really cool. If you, I bought a few pedals that I checked because I was using the captures of it, and I thought, man, that sounds so nice. I want to tweak it a little bit more in my directions. Let's get it, because it's not that expensive, like 4,000. It's more like maybe 200, 300, and that's affordable. So go for it.
Yeah, for me, for example, I really liked in the past plugins or captures from EVHs. So I'm really thinking of getting an EVH, because I would love to have, you know, the real thing here as well, that I can tweak and dial and, you know, create a relationship to it, create a connection to the product and also to my sound imagination, you know? So I really would.
I can really, please do it, because it's like it's like a relationship actually, because you really, it's more connected.